As I read Robert Zeglin's portrayals of masculinity in guy movies, which serves an important purpose in categorizing its randomly selected film characters based on 36 CMNI variables, I thought to myself that there must be other ways of understanding this information. He concludes that on average, each character displays 6 or 54.5% of the CMNI factors with a range of 5 to 8. This provides for interesting observations, however, I feel that content analysis alone attempts to understand a grey area of study using black and white tools for said observation. As a result, I have opted to include aspects of content analysis alongside personal analysis of explicitly selected films to make an argument. This video essay will look at representations of femininity on screen, particularly in action heroines, answering the question, how have roles for women in action feature films changed over the past 20 years, and is this shift a response to societal expectations for greater gender parity on screen? Looking first at perhaps one of the most influential action heroines of the last decade, we have Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot's performance as the Amazon warrior was immediately met with praise from critics as her portrayal was strong, fierce, passionate to stand up for what's right, and most importantly, her character was innately feminine. In his book, Beyond Bombshells, Jeffrey Brown tells us that the Hollywood action heroine is a character who has finally established a record of popularity and profitability after years of uneven success at the box office. While there are a number of recent female-led films such as Star Wars and The Hunger Games, I believe that Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman is an excellent case study in that she represents the wave of recent characters that embody heroism without sidelining or neglecting their feminine qualities. If the box office gross of $821 million and Metascore of 76 are anything to go by, the commercial, critical, and cultural impact of Wonder Woman is clearly not to be taken lightly. Perhaps this success is due to the fact that Patty Jenkins made a decent film with fun action and audiences were looking for something exciting, or, and what I'm going to argue is more likely, Patty Jenkins successfully made the first great female-led superhero film and audiences were drawn in due to the refreshing take on a trope-ridden genre. Take for example, Jean-Christophe Camar's Catwoman from 2004. The film also follows a DC Comics female lead. Can you see a difference? One would struggle to argue against the words of the acclaimed late Roger Ebert, who says, Catwoman is a movie about Halle Berry's beauty, sex appeal, figure, eyes, lips, and costume design. It may be true that Wonder Woman and Catwoman are both badass female characters, capable of doing whatever their male counterparts might do, but my intention with this essay is to identify the key difference. Camar's dominatrix-like femme fatale doesn't empower audiences like Gal Gadot's titular heroine, not only because she's overtly sexualized by the screenwriter, director, and cinematographer in equal measure, but because she lacks the layers that make up a compelling, complex character. You may be thinking, well, one film was directed by a man and the other a woman, and yes, that is bound to influence the creative vision of the film. However, the gender of a filmmaker does not determine which films they're able to make. I'd like to point to one of the masters of modern cinema, David Fincher, and his film The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, based on the book of the same name written by a male author. Lisbeth Salander, the lead character of the Millennium Trilogy, is widely considered one of the best female characters to grace literature in quite some time. Despite the fact that she doesn't conform to traditional notions of femininity as Wonder Woman might, Lisbeth shows that a diverse range of female portrayals can and does work. Fincher's film expertly demonstrates what makes her an icon, and she is anything but conventional. Instead of a tall, sexually enticing one-dimensional character, Lisbeth is a feminist because of her intellectual genius, technological mastery, physical prowess, and ability to defend herself and extract revenge on her assailants, destroying not just the individuals that abuse her, but the systems that make possible their abuse of power. Now, let's look back to another well-known series. Joseph McGinty Nichols' Charlie's Angels films were a remake of the popular 70s series, featuring a trio of fierce women that tackle events typically relegated to esteemed authorities. By the very nature of the title, they exercise less agency than some other characters I've spoken about, as they work profusely for a man whose face we never see and who speaks to them as if they are children. Clearly, the inherent ways in which these heroines are portrayed and presented says something about the changing industry then. I truly believe that a film like Charlie's Angels were to come out today, it would face immense criticism, and not only for over-sexualizing its characters. Expressions of power are another form of examining formidable characters. Pamela Pansardi talks about expressions of power, specifically how we can distinguish between the three defining components of power: power over, power with, and power to. Pansardi reflects on a crucial difference discussed by other scholars in feminist theory, that is, power over is widely considered to exist in an instance of domination, whereas power to involves the power to act acquired by individuals and subordinate groups despite their subordination. What I'm saying is that upon closer inspection of the not-so-subtle differences between these films, we can actually observe subtle distinctions in how they represent expressions of power. I would argue that characters such as Catwoman or the Angels, Charlie's Angels, are expressing power over those that oppose them. The problem with this is that it's like fighting fire with fire. Catwoman is a response to the age-old tale of an attractive, muscular man who asserts power and dominance over others, particularly women, then it's not a very effective one. Reactionary motions like this don't do anything to improve upon the on-screen gender disparity. Instead, they lead to tokenistic films such as Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, which diverts from sexualizing its female characters to doing the same thing to its male characters. The reason films like this don't work is because audiences are becoming more alert to such cases and exercising greater agency than ever before. Take the box office results for Ghostbusters as an example. Subsequently, results from a series of surveys I conducted indicate that 68% of audiences are not more or less likely to see a film based on the gender of the lead. Surely then, filmmakers are starting to realize that a tokenistic approach is not the right way, and that effective characters are effective because they serve the story, not the social politics surrounding the film. I believe there is no better example than George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road. The Mad Max films, which began in 1979, centered around a titular character as he enacts revenge on the gang responsible for murdering his wife and son. Fury Road still follows Max, and the world is still patriarchal. Where it stands out is in its implementation of a strong heroine, in that while the story is ultimately about Imperator Furiosa and her crusade to save the 5 wives of Immortan Joe, Max is not in fact sidelined as a character. Furiosa couldn't possibly achieve freedom without him, and she recognizes this. Similarly, Max wouldn't make it past the first 30 minutes of the film without her actions. The argument of what constitutes a feminist film is quite heated these days. Nevertheless, Press and Leib's Plesner state in their journal that a more substantial quota than that of passing the Bechdel test should include but not be limited to the following parameters. 1. Women are present in central roles. 2. There is variation in age range, size, sexuality, race, and appearance of women on screen and beyond the usual narrow parameters. 3. Women are seen in roles with power and status. And 4. There are variations from the heteronormative depictions of family. So, what does all of this really mean for the future of cinema, particularly the future of women in cinema? For one, I think it means that not only is Hollywood listening, but that they are beginning to take proper action. It may still be some time before worldwide gender parity is apparent on screen, but with creators such as the aforementioned Patty Jenkins, David Fincher, and George Miller leading the charge, I don't doubt that the future could see female stories given their due, without committing men to the same unscrupulous role women have suffered for far too long.